So this week I did something a little different. I had a conversation with a gentleman that is involved with some things that I honestly don't know much about. But that was the point of the conversation. I met a gentleman that is a psychic medium. A medium is a person that is able to kind of be like a bridge between the living and the dead world. Now, I came into it with, I don't want to say skepticism, because I do believe that there are spirits around us. I give examples of why I believe that. I also reiterate many times on this episode, I want to be ignorant to it. I don't want to know nothing. I don't want reading. I'm good. And pardon all the sweat on my face for the people watching this. It is hot in the black and red room, black and red cave, excuse me. It's very hot in there, and I can't put the fans on because that's all you hear in the microphone. But I think I still look good. Either way, I'd had him on because as usual, I'm very curious. I have a very curious just outlook on life. If there's things that I don't know or things that I want to learn, I'm going to go to the expert. I can YouTube it, I can read it, but if there's somebody that is involved in it, why not come on the show and talk about it? And that's kind of been the evolution of Deep Thoughts with Iron, and you guys will see a little bit more of that as this continues to grow. But it was an awesome episode. Very, very charismatic gentleman. I guess he's very good at his job. I'm not saying I guess sarcastically. I don't know much about it personally, as far as like what makes a medium great. But he sounds like he is definitely out there trying to do good. He seems like he knows what he's doing. Again, I'm ignorant to it, so it's like me telling you how to be a lawyer. I have no idea. You might sound good. You sound like you know your lawyer stuff, but I don't know what you're talking about, bro. But at the end of the day, it was a great episode, and I'm very glad that he came on. And I know a lot of people out here are hurting. They want to speak to somebody that they may have lost or have questions or whatever. And honestly, if this is something that you believe in, I'm going to funnel you to him. His name is Jamal Lewis, and I'll put all the contact information down. It's going to be on the page, but definitely take a listen, open your mind, expand your mind a little bit, even if it's something that you don't necessarily believe in. I had to make sure that I was actually recording this, sorry. But even if it's something that you don't necessarily believe in, you may just be able to get some type of jewels, or just take a listen. It's an entertaining episode. So be sure to leave a review, follow the show, share the show. Everything helps. And UG, let's get into it. One, two, three. What's good, everybody? It is your favorite MC / favorite RT, Iron Imp, aka Flo Rogan, aka Scarlet Bro Handsome, and I'm here with a special guest today. A little bit out the normal pattern of Deep Thoughts and Iron guests, and that's the whole point of it. We're expanding our horizons, and I'm here with very awesome gentleman that I had the pleasure of just running into one day at work, and the conversation just flowed very easily, and he was a very funny, charming, interesting guy, because you used a couple of words and you kept repeating certain words, and I'm like, okay, maybe this guy is into certain things that we'll get into. And I'm here, well, I didn't know what you were actually into, but like I figured you was a very spiritual person, because you kept saying things like vibes and energies, and you mentioned something else, I forgot what it was, but I was like, okay, cool. You remind me of a girl I used to talk to. Super extra superstar. You're going to hear about him at some point. Mr. Jamal Lewis. Medium Jamal Lewis. Can't forget the title. Welcome to the Black and Red Cave, man.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here and to just be sitting across from you. So, yeah, bring on the questions and let's see what comes up. I'm always excited for the journey.
Absolutely. You're going to be a very interesting guest. Not to put the pressure. I tend to like to under-promise and over-deliver, but, I think we're going to have a good
Yeah,
show here.
for
So,
sure.
as I said, medium Jamal Lewis. What is a medium, sir?
Yeah, so as a medium, I have the ability to connect with departed loved ones that have crossed over. And I also have the ability to connect with our personal spirit guides. People may call them guardian angels or,
Mm,
in that realm, but I can connect to both of them through my gifts and get information to help you receive more clarity, more closure, more healing in this life by accessing their higher wisdom.
that's awesome. And that opens up so many different pathways to go. And I was struggling while I was writing the treatment down for this episode. Where do I want to start? Because
Hmm.
there's a lot of places to go, and I have a lot of questions, and I'm sure a lot of my guests do because I told some that I was having a medium on, and they was like, "Oh, ask them this, do this, do this." And I said, I'm not gonna give anybody a free session here, and I'm sure I don't know how it works, but if I ask you to talk about my friend James and his loved ones, I don't think it works that way. I don't know. You tell me. But
Yeah,
when you
it could.
say that, I'm sorry.
No, it totally could. It totally could. Like when we start talking about it and I become open, I'll start to
Yeah.
get impressions from the other side and like I'll start to hear and sense and feel information. So yeah, if anything comes through, I'll offer that to you.
Yo, feel free. I don't want to know nothing about me though. I'm good. Like, I'm scared of
Okay,
all of this
I
stuff,
can't
bro.
now that's one thing about being a medium. You can't
Yeah.
control what comes through. You just
Yeah.
receive the information and decide if you're going
Hmm.
to pass it along or keep
Yeah, you can keep it, bro. I'm good. You can hold that like
it.
this. Keep it right here. Um,
Okay.
So let's start at the beginning of this, like, because it's almost like a superpower in my opinion. Because again, I'm kind
Mm.
of ignorant to the world that you live in. So for me, it's like a superhero power. When did you start getting the feeling that okay, I might have a little extra ability than other people, or something's a little different?
Yeah. So it actually started when I was about 10.
Okay.
We stayed in this house where someone had died. And and they had like crossed over in my mom's room. And so like that night I slept in her room around like 10 years old.
Yeah.
And I woke up because I heard someone screaming. And like those, like the dresser with the mirror combos and the mirror
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
sits on top of the dresser. So we had one of those next to the bed. And so when I woke up, I happened to like look in the mirror and I saw this like glowing figure of someone in the closet that had crossed over. So I mean, like I was completely scared and freaked out, right? Because I mean, I
Of
heard a
course,
scream and
man.
now I see things
Yeah.
in the closet, and so that started. And then after that, I would just get more and more situations where someone's crossed over grandfather, someone's crossed over grandmother, like my friends would come to me in that same manner, and they look just kind of like glowing outlines of people, right?
Wow.
Um, but as a kid growing up black and in the South, like you are terrified. I was terrified, I will say. So I shunned it and like closed myself off from my abilities for a long time because I didn't understand it and I had no one to help me go through it, you know?
Sure. And I mean, who can you go to talk to about that? That must have been
Right.
absolutely terrifying because as kids, it almost seemed like I heard it was like a genetic thing from way back. Like we're afraid of monsters. Like nobody told me to be afraid of monsters, but I
Hmm.
was always scared of the monster in the bed, whatever the case was, or boogeyman in the closet.
Exactly.
Um, what was your first thought? Like, what the fuck? Like, how did that
My
translate in your 10-year-old brain?
My first thought was I started praying. I remember like vividly putting the
Mm,
covers over my head and
yeah,
asking God, I was like, God, please keep me safe. Because, as a kid, putting the covers
sure.
over your head is like safe bubble zone, right?
Yeah,
It's
it's
like
like a turtle shell.
universally no. Yeah. And so I did that and I was like, God, please keep me safe. Like, just protect me and
Yeah,
make it go away because I was just so frightened by it. Yeah.
yeah.
So that
That
was definitely
seems.
my first thought.
So, did you tell your mom or anybody about this that night, or did you just kind of eat it and just keep it going?
Yeah. I internalized it for years. And you know what? It's so interesting because, now that I work as a professional certified medium, I was
Right.
telling my mom about this experience. She was like, well, when did this start? And I was like, oh, remember when we stayed in that house? And
Mm.
I was like, I saw someone die. I saw like a disembodied person there. And she told me, and she was like, are you serious? And I was like, yeah. And she was just like, when we moved into that house, this guy I worked with told me that someone had passed away in that house, but I didn't believe it. And she was like, and I always felt like something was going on in that house because the lights would do weird stuff. And then she tells
Oh,
me, and she was like, why didn't you tell me? And I
yeah,
remember, and I got chill bumps. Now, I remember being so floored at her response. And I thought to myself,
yeah.
what if I actually told her? Would it have changed my entire life being able to grow up as a medium instead of growing into my medium abilities, you know?
Isn't that amazing? First of all, shout out to your mom for being that kind of open to it. Because I know
Yeah.
I can see my mother maybe, and my mom has passed. I can see my mother maybe being open to it at the time or at a time,
Hmm.
but I can also see her telling me to, get out of here with that nonsense. And
Hmm.
not to say my mother was closed-minded, but again, she grew up in the church, which is interesting that you mentioned the church because
Yeah.
do you consider yourself a religious man now?
I am more spiritual with religious wiring.
That is a bar. I like the way you said that. So you have, so you're like the Honda Accord with the Lamborghini engine. Like you got the makings of it, but I don't know if you can do that actually. That car might blow up, but I'm not a car guy, people. I'm just trying to make an example. So like when you went to church, like as a child and growing up, did you feel when you were talking about spirits and I don't know
Mhm.
what denomination you grew up in, but church is essentially a spiritual kind of journey. Did you feel
Yeah.
like, yeah, that's not how that works, or that makes sense a little bit like that? Did you have that kind of insider information,
Mm.
so to speak?
I think that's such a great question. When I think back on my experience of church, like grew up Southern Baptist, and then when I got to college, I transitioned to Episcopalian, and like that just felt more aligned for me.
Okay.
But I would say all throughout my experience of church, it was just always so emotional,
Yeah.
and I think that was because I've always been a very sensitive person, and so like
Mm.
feeling the energy and feeling just how that culminates. If you think of church, like church is just all energy, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And so
Especially our church.
in right, and
Mm.
so in services, I just know I would always feel everything so deeply. Like the music, I felt deeply. The sermons, I felt deeply, whether they were left or whether they were right. And I think a part of the reason why I transitioned from the Black church to going, when I say Black church, I mean like Southern Baptist is how we grew up,
Yeah.
right?
Right, right.
Why I transitioned from Southern Baptist to Episcopalian was because I was starting to feel overwhelmed in church. And I didn't know
Wow.
what that was, but I knew that when I went to Black churches and we started like praising and worshiping and the clapping and like just like how emphatic we get, it
Yeah.
was a lot for me to handle. And when I switched to Episcopalian, it was more standardized. It was the same
Mm.
every Sunday. It flowed. We
Mm.
had a program. Like there was no deviation. It was very even keel. And I found myself being able to digest church much better. But I had no idea that it was because of my sensitivities were just unmitigated.
Is Episcopalian church like a little more quiet, like a little more calm? I
Hmm.
don't know much about
Yeah.
it. Okay. Okay,
Yeah,
fair
it
enough.
it follows a lot of like Catholicism proceedings. So
Right.
you get like a program and like you read through it and then like it's a procession. It's everything is the same. Yeah.
Got you. So you know what you're getting into, as opposed to like you don't know if pastor's going to really be going off and in this
Yeah.
on this day. Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly.
So is it a thing where? Because I looked at one of your media memos, hashtag media
Mm.
memos. I'll put that on your
Yeah.
wall. I'm like, why didn't he put the hashtag on here? Make this your thing.
Yeah. Thank
You know
you.
what I'm
You're a real
saying?
one.
Yeah, yeah. We got to help each other out, right? And
100.
the way I look at it is like again, coming from the ignorant brain,
Hmm.
ignorant to this world, I should say. Is it almost like in the movies when somebody gets a superpower where they can hear thoughts and stuff like that? It's overwhelming and they run to like a room where there's nobody at because they're hearing 1,000 voices. Is this how this works, or is this you have to be in a certain space to catch that?
Yo,
Because
I
it seems
honestly,
distracting.
I love this so much
Hmm.
because like my whole life, I've always been obsessed with superpowers and like Marvel
Yeah,
movies and stuff. And so like I always had this feeling I was like, my powers are gonna come in one day. My powers are gonna come in. And like you said, like
yeah,
in the movies, it's always like one day when you're not expecting it. And then it completely like ruins your life for months. And then like you just
yeah.
feel turned inside out. And
Hmm.
honestly, I shit you not, that is exactly how it felt.
Wow.
When so like being able to when I stepped into my mediumship, it followed me doing a lot of inner work and like emotional and personal excavation. And
Yeah.
so like lightening up the inner body helps the outer body perceive. And so a lot of like mediums will find themselves developing their gifts after doing a lot of internal work. And so when it happened, the best way I could put it is I felt like my nervous system was turned inside out. I felt everything. I
Yeah.
was hearing voices. I couldn't be touched. I couldn't sit next to people. It got to a point where I couldn't go to work. because I was so unregulated. And I remember there were days when my abilities first started to like be full on at 100%, where
Yeah,
the only time I felt like I could make it stop was like curled up on the floor. And so there were days I didn't get off the floor. I self isolated for like 3 months, honestly.
that's
And
terrifying.
my people were worried about me. My friends were worried about me. They're like, what's going on? How can we help? And I'm like, I have no idea how to tell you. A, I'm hearing voices. I'm questioning my like sanity. I
Yeah,
feel everything. I can't sit next to people because I'm picking up their emotions,
yeah.
and I just need to be alone. So like, I remember sending a group text to my friends and saying, hey, I am not doing well. I'm going to have to take some time alone, and I will let you guys know when I come back. Like, I couldn't even talk to my therapist for like at least a month and a half because
Yeah.
I didn't know what was going on, but I knew that being around people exacerbated it.
Wow. And you know, again, I was going to ask you, like, did you question your sanity at this point? Did your people question your sanity? 'Cause I worked in a healthcare psych hospital,
Yeah.
and you know, to me, people hearing voices and whatever people are seeing at that moment, to me or to the staff or whoever else, looks a little abnormal, but to this person, it's a real thing. You know,
Hmm.
and that must have been even scarier. Like, when did that start happening? Around what age?
Yeah. I would say that started happening in my 20s, like
Okay.
in my mid 20s. And like before then, I would just get spirits coming to me, or they'd come to me in dreams wanting to pass messages along.
Hmm.
Um, but then in terms of like my psychic abilities, because like a lot of it is psychic, my psychic
My next
abilities
question.
didn't start to come into until I was mid 20s. And and just like as a learning point, we have this saying where every medium is psychic, but not every psychic is a
Psychic is a
medium.
medium. I saw that.
Yes,
I
yes.
do
And
my research,
so
people.
I love that. And so for me, I my mediumship abilities came in, and
Hmm.
then my psychic abilities started to come in. And I didn't start having psychic information that I could appreciate until I was in my mid 20s, and it was exacerbated by being in a relationship that wasn't really healthy for me.
Oh,
And so being in that relationship started to tip off my psychic abilities.
yeah.
And honestly, people give women crap about it all the time about like, oh, woman's intuition, like women always know X, Y, and Z. But like
Mhm.
we all have the ability to develop our intuition. And it's through our intuition we receive psychic information. And that is given to
That's
everyone.
interesting.
And
That's
so
interesting.
some people are more sensitive to it, but
Hmm.
we all have that ability to develop our intuition and receive psychic information. And so in this unhealthy relationship, I would get psychic information about like things he was doing behind my back, or psychic
Yeah.
information about like, oh, do this, or like check this. And it makes you feel like you're crazy because you're like, I don't want to be that
Right.
person
Right.
that invades privacy or X, Y, and Z. But when you have
Right.
like this gut feeling and like this voice in your head that says, do it, and when you turn out to be right, how do you explain that?
Yo, so that's such a hard thing. Because one thing that I have, for one thing, I'll never check my girl's phone. I'll never do any of
Mm-hmm.
that stuff. Even if I feel like the energy is like, that sounds a little off,
Mm-hmm.
I'll investigate through her, you know. But when I hear like a lot of women say, I checked through his phone and blah, 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 to me, that's such a breach of trust. You know, even
It
if you
is, yeah.
feel a way, because you may also go in there because you're not you personally, but you're going into this situation with a certain intent. And you may see a
Mm-hmm.
text message that I send to my coworker saying, "Oh yeah, I'm going to hit that later," right? And I could be talking about
Mm-hmm.
going to the gym, but you already have in your brain that I'm doing this and this, and then you're gonna be like, "See, my intuition was right. I knew you were doing something." And I'm like, "Nah, yo, I was going to the
Yeah.
gym. I'm gonna hit the gym, and you just fucked up.
Yeah.
Now I can't message you no
Yeah.
more." So that's a tough low line to toe right there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
No, it really is. And, one of the things that I emphasize all the time about being a medium is there are so many ethics that
Mm,
comes along with stepping into this role. So like if you do receive psychic information, it's important to have that consent both ways in order to give that
mm,
to someone. And so if you were feeling that way about your partner, having these inklings or like inclinations, you would go to them in a perfect world, right? You would go to them
yeah.
and you would say, hey, I'm feeling this way. This is what is coming up in my body. It's what I'm feeling in my gut. I need to talk
So
about this.
Sure.
But in order to do that, there has to be a lot of back processing. There has to be a lot of growth. Like I told you, that emotional and personal excavation needs
Yeah.
to happen, because if not, you're just flying off the handle with these maybe like haphazard intuitive
Right.
insights. And
And
so
some
and
of it could be a
so
little bit of insecurity. Some of it could be damage from past
exactly,
situations. So
exactly.
that's always an
And so
interesting line. And you
yeah,
said
and so
something
that
very, yeah, I'm sorry, go ahead.
no, go ahead. Yeah, you're so great.
No, no, I was just listening to you. You give me a lot of things, and it's funny because a lot of the things that you're hitting on are things that I wrote down, which means that we're here. You know what I'm saying? And
Hmm.
one of the questions that I had was, do you think everybody kind of has this ability? Because certain things that happened to me like yesterday, and it was funny because I thought of you immediately, even though, again, I didn't know that psychic and medium were, kind of mutually exclusive.
Hmm.
Um, I had the meanest, craziest deja vu where it made my feet itch. And I don't know, I can't explain deja vu, but it all was exactly something that I saw. I was sitting in a certain unit. I was watching a show. Certain things happened. Got a text from
Hmm.
somebody, and it all happened to me before. I know that was there. And I was wondering if this is part of like maybe everybody has some type of maybe like a radar or some type of connection, I should say, to something a little bit extra, and
Hmm.
kind of scared me. Even the things like you said, intuition, or you have people say things like they feel cold when maybe a spirit's passing. I don't know if that's TV or not. I don't know if that's a
Yeah,
real thing, but do you think we all have that power?
yeah.
I don't want it, bro. I'm very comfortable being ignorant to this and being detached.
See, and that's what happens, right? But to answer your question, yes, we all have the ability to like develop our psychic
Hmm.
abilities, and to even we all have the abilities to be mediums as well. It's just a matter of how much you open yourself up to it. And one of my
Right.
services is actually intuitive coaching, where if someone thinks that maybe I receive more psychic information than, like the average person, or I feel like I might be a medium. Like that's one of the services I offer is like, let's sit down, let's unpack this, and let's see if we can develop this for you. And anyone can do it. And in terms of
Wow.
like those deja vu moments, that is psychic energy, because we all have the same
Yeah.
wiring. We're all humans, but what happens is we are conditioned from such a logical, scientific standpoint to
Right.
navigate life through what we can see, what we can feel, that we don't even realize that we reject so much of the intangible. So we reject our sensations. And I mean,
Right.
let's face it, in the Western culture, we are not a people who have historically put emotions first.
Yeah.
We are like solutions first. And so when you put your emotions on the back burner, you decrease your sensitivities, you decrease your ability to feel, and you decrease the ability to expand your mind, honestly, to perceive that there is so much more out in front of you than you can see. I mean, like you hear all the time, there's so much research that says, oh, we only use like 5% of our brains. And it's like, okay,
Hmm. Hmm.
if we have this organ that we don't fully understand, that we can quantify 5%, what are we doing with the other 95%? Can
Yeah.
that be developed? Can I expand my mind to believe that it can be developed? And that alone plants a seed of development.
That's awesome. Hey man, I definitely feel like we have so much untapped potential. And like you said, we're even just in general, not even spiritual stuff. Like we are taught since a young age, there's a
Mm-hmm.
certain path that you have to stay within. You can't color outside the lines. Like these are the defined lines we're going to give you, and you can get close to the line, but you can't color outside of it. And I think
Mm-hmm.
that kind of conditioning does make us kind of want to stay in our little pocket. Like me, like I said, I'm
Right.
comfortable. Not, I'm good, and but where you at, where you embrace it. I don't know if you embraced it immediately or did you have to like kind of grow into embracing, okay, there's something that I can actually do with this, or there is,
Mm-hmm.
why am I going to run from it? It's here. Like, did you feel any of that?
Yeah. I would say as an adolescent, as like early 20s, like definitely ran from it. But then, like in my 30s, when I start to get a better understanding of who I was as a person.
Sure.
And if you follow me, you'll see I talk a lot about understanding your own personal vibration, understanding what your energy is like. Because when
Mm-hmm.
you get this strong sense of self, you are able then to perceive everything around you as that and as me. And so
Yeah.
you really start to understand like how you interact with the world. And so like you were saying, like for example, when I'm sitting and I feel spirit energy upon me, like I get these somatic cues, so sensations change. I maybe like get warm or
Right.
cholesterol, I feel a coolness. And I'm like, okay, I understand my own personal energy so much that I know this is not mine. And so it
Wow.
helps me be open to it.
Yeah.
But now I embrace it because I finally got to a point where I understood what my own personal energy and vibration is like. So yeah, but it took
Wow.
a while to get there.
This is legitimately like a superhero storyline, man. Like
Yeah.
it's really cool. And it's like you said something earlier, and I meant to jump right to it, but I forgot it, but I just remembered. So you mentioned the emotional part of this, right? So
Hmm.
again, I don't mean this offensively. You got to say this nowadays because everybody's offended by everything. If I say blue and people like green, then I must hate green, right? Do you
Yeah,
think, due to the emotion versus the logic part of it, that women are a little more open or maybe a little more, I don't want to say susceptible because that sounds devious, but like a little more
sure.
sensitive to this type of connection than men are? Because if you tell me two
Yeah.
plus two
Oh,
is
for
four, I'm going to
sure.
take that as word. I don't need to know three plus one.
Yeah. Oh, for sure, for sure, for sure. Actually, if you look at a lot of mediums that are practicing today, you'll see that it's like heavily populated with
Hmm.
women.
Yeah.
Because although as a global society, we're taught to not really rely on our emotions to make decisions or to navigate life, women have always held this like certain degree or section of I am going to function from a place of emotions. My emotions are a part of me.
Yeah.
And through that, they've always felt, like, women will say, like, when they have kids, oh, like a woman's intuition. And they're like, oh, my baby is sick or X, Y, and Z. And like, they'll turn
Hmm.
out to be exactly right. Or, if they're in a cruddy relationship, they'll have intuitions about like their guy. You've heard every grandma say, oh, I had a dream about fishes. So and so is
Oh
pregnant.
yeah, that's so black.
That, and it happens to be so true. And honestly,
Really?
like, it's turned into one of my symbols as a
Hmm.
medium. And one
Fish?
night I had a dream about fishes about a friend. And when I
Yeah.
met up with her the next day, I didn't say anything. And she was like, actually, I'm pregnant. And I was like, okay,
Whoa.
checks
Listen,
out.
people, don't dream about no fish for me for at least another year. Real talk.
Yeah.
Not yet,
He's
though.
like, keep the fishes
Nah,
away.
I just got Blaze. That's it. And Mr. Rodriguez.
Yeah.
Not yet. Wow, that's awesome, man. So,
Yeah.
yeah, because I do see that emotional part. And like I said, sometimes I think it causes damage in relationships. I had a feeling, but, to be fair, it's not always wrong, man. Unfortunately, it's
Yeah.
not always wrong.
And I love that you say that because it brings up this thought of, well, this concept more so of developed and undeveloped. I mean,
Yeah,
there are so many people that say, "Oh, I'm a medium" or "I'm a psychic," and like you can go see a psychic on like the street for like $10, right?
yeah,
Or
yeah.
you'll go see someone who claims to be a medium and they'll give you a reading, and it comes down to how developed is that medium, how developed is that psychic, because you could receive information
Hmm.
that you misinterpret, information that you don't understand. You could
Wow.
receive information that is coupled with your own thoughts and insecurities, and you completely obscure the message
Right,
spirit is trying to send
right.
you.
Your own
And
biases.
so, exactly. And so, when, for example, like people get those like intuitive insights, those psychic nudges, and they deliver them, and it turns out to be wrong, it could easily been like, okay, we're sending you this feeling of your guy maybe sleeping around on you, and then you take it as like, oh, you're cheating on me. But maybe what spirit was telling you is there is something within you that
Hmm.
needs to be healed from previous relationships that this current relationship is activating in you, and maybe you should unpack that. But because you maybe misinterpreted the message or the mind got in the way, you
Yeah,
completely missed an opportunity to promote clarity in your life, to promote closure from a traumatic past, and
yeah,
promote healing in yourself and healing in your relationship. And so that is why I really emphasize, when you develop yourself and get these messages from spirit, your ultimate outcome is clarity, closure, and healing. And that's why people are like, oh, aren't you scared? I am not scared, because when you take the time to understand what you're doing, you
yeah.
see that the ultimate vibration of this is the betterment and going towards your highest self.
Wow. This guy's dropping bars here. If this thing works, it's supposed to be a soundboard, but it never shows up in the final edit. So I'm not even gonna bother, man. But I would have dropped a little shotgun on that. It's
Yeah.
interesting because as you started to get stronger in it, right, and you started to get more into it, and I want to get into like your business, like you have a business now. We're gonna get into all of that because I know
Mm-hmm.
people are going to want to reach out to you. I'm more curious about the development and the steps. when did you start looking to maybe find other people like you? Or, sorry, that sounds like I'm being like racist, but like other people with your,
No, no, it's
uh,
yeah.
okay. I'm sorry. I'm so conditioned in this world. Everybody's so damn sensitive and I hate it, you know.
Yeah.
Did you start seeking out other people? Could you talk to somebody and just tell, oh, this person is kind of in the same boat that I am? Like, how do you develop
Hmm.
relationships within the community? That's a good word. And within the community, how do you build relationships in that? How do you not feel alone in this? Because I assume it maybe felt lonely at times too.
For sure, dude. That's a beautiful question. So definitely, like I said, the loneliness was there. That's why I self-isolated for 3 months because I didn't know how to
Mm.
talk to anybody about it. But then, fortunately, living in LA, like we are much more of a spiritual people, and so like there's like much more openness about it. And one of my friends, she is a tarot card reader, and so I was like, I feel called to talk to you. I need like a reading. What is happening? So
Cool.
she does this reading, and then I am telling her what I'm experiencing. Mind you, I didn't know anything about like being a medium at this point. And so I'm telling her about it and like my experience and how I'm feeling. And she's pulling
Yeah.
these cards, and like I just start like crying because I feel so
Wow.
seen in this inexplicable experience.
Yeah.
And then as I'm getting ready to go, she says to me, she was like, um, maybe you can reach out to this girl that I know. She is a medium and she's a mentor, and maybe you can like reach out to her. And I was like, I don't know what the fuck that is.
So you
So,
didn't know what a
okay,
medium
sure.
was at that point. You just knew something was different.
No, I knew
Oh,
events were occurring within my
yeah.
belief. And so I was like, okay. And so like I took the information, and then it wasn't until about a month later, like Spirit will send you signs to put
Yeah.
you on the path you're supposed to be on. And so
Right.
like I'm rapidly reading, I'm rapidly Googling, and then this thing came up as I was Googling, and it talked about a medium. And so I was like, what is that? And so I clicked on it, and it was like, oh, how to communicate with spirits that have crossed over. And I was like, I have no interest in talking to dead people. I just want
Yeah.
to understand why I'm hearing voices and feeling all this information because I was like, I'm
Right.
very psychic.
Right.
And so I was like, you know what? I'm just going to do it. And so I did a reading for my dad, actually, was my very first reading. And he was so
Wow.
open to it and did a reading. And then after that, I hit up the mentor a month later and set up an appointment. And then, like, when she called me on the phone, she was like, hey, and I was like, I wanted to like set up an appointment to like get some spiritual counseling because that's what the appointment
Sure.
was, spiritual counseling. And then she was like, okay. And she was like, well, she was like, it feels like you're here for spiritual counseling, but I think you might be a medium. First thing she said to me.
Wow.
And I
So
was
she
like,
sensed it.
yeah. And I was like, okay. And then we had our first session. At the end of it, she was like, you are a natural born medium and you need to
Wow.
develop these gifts. And so then that was my first mentor. And then I got a second mentor. And then I went to the LA School for Spiritual Arts and did my certification course as a professional certified medium. And that is a whole other like
Wow.
experience for
So there's
sure.
a governing body for
Yeah.
oh wow. See,
Yeah.
the thing this is what you learn on Deep Door Tonight. People's telling you to listen
Yeah.
to the show. That's
Yeah.
incredible. So like we'll get to that too then, because I saw
For
there was
sure. For
something
sure.
and I wrote it down and I spelled it wrong. So I'm not even gonna bother, but there are a group of oh man, yeah, I definitely spelled it wrong. But there seems to be like a lot of I'm not gonna bother because I forgot the name of it. But it was like certain institutes. There's research centers that I
Yeah.
saw that looking at that's why I looked at a lot of the research. So I have
Hmm.
something to actually talk about here. Um, but I can't. They do like this grants, people getting funded, training programs,
Yeah.
which is fascinating to me. And from what you were telling me, you mentioned earlier, like that you like superheroes growing up and everything like that. And again, I don't mean this offensively to anybody watching this, but
Hmm.
this almost sounds like the X-Men when they start to realize that they're mutants, and then they have to kind of channel. It's a nerd talk here, guys. I like the X-Men. I had a crush on Psylocke. That was my first childhood crush. You know what I'm saying?
Yo, that's
Psylocke was
legit.
fire. Psylocke, oh God. Anyway,
Yeah.
yeah, this is a cartoon character, but no hips. Anyway, so this almost sounds like a X-Men thing, and like she was like your Professor X, or people that you met throughout life with like your Professor X.
Seriously.
That's awesome, man.
Seriously.
So you went into the program after that to get, I guess, licensed
Hmm.
or certified.
So, yeah, actually, like, it's so funny. I call her like my Dumbledore is what I call her. I'm like, this is like
Mm,
Hogwarts in LA.
yeah.
Uh, And so
Never saw Harry Potter,
when
by the way.
yo, oh
Never saw
dang,
it.
you're missing out. Okay, well
Never saw it.
she would be
So I hear.
Professor X then.
So no, go
And
ahead. Go with your reference. It's popular enough
you
that I get the references.
yeah, no, she was for sure.
Yeah.
And so what I did is I signed up for mind you, I had no training at all.
Sure.
But I was like, I got to do something. And so I signed up for a beginner's mediumship course. And
Wow.
so signed up for the course, paid the money, and it was like a Saturday event from 9 to 5 where you spent the day going through a rubric and you were around other people who were practicing mediums or interested in it. And so it was part of like she's so thorough, like she meets you one on one and then she sits with you, she reads your energy, she taps into your field and sees like if you're more psychic, if you have mediumship abilities, like she goes through all of this and then she puts you in like these group settings to like and
Yeah.
gives you these examples and see what comes through for you. And so I was like, okay, this is going to be great. So I was looking forward to it all month. And then the time actually came and I get an email saying that it was canceled. And
Oh
I was
no.
like, okay, cool. What am I going to do now?
Yeah.
And so she was like, well, I can give you a refund or you can go to another one. And at the time, my schedule didn't work out. So, like, the universe is definitely funneling, right? And my
Yeah.
schedule didn't work out. And so I was like resistant to it. And I was like, actually, can we just do a mentorship? And
Mm.
can, like, instead of like me getting a refund, can we just book 4 sessions with the refund, with the money? And she was like,
Yeah.
yeah. So we started meeting weekly and we met once a week. And the very I never forget this. The very first call, she was like, just like meditate before you hop on the call, and then we'll
Right.
talk about everything. I was like, okay, cool. So meditated, I was good to go. So we hop on the call, and then she was like, hi Jamal, how are you? And I was like, I'm good. And she was like, it's nice to meet you. She was like, we'll see what abilities you have. We'll see if you're more psychic, if you're more medium, if you're both. And I was like, okay, great. And she was like, I have Heidi here to for you to read. And I'm like,
Mm.
what?
You
Because in
said
my
Heidi?
mind, yeah. Because so I
Okay.
was like, what do you mean? And so like in my
Mm.
mind, I thought it was just going to be she and I informational, right? Like,
Mm.
I don't know what I'm doing. I'm trying to
Mm.
figure it out.
Mm.
And instead, she was just like, I have another person on three-way. She's going to come on. You're going to connect to her energy and you're going to give her a reading right now.
Yo, so she threw you right in the game.
Seriously. And so I was like, I was freaking out.
Yeah, yeah,
And
I'm
I
sure.
was like, okay. And so the girl comes on the call, and I take up to 30 seconds to center myself and
Mm.
connect with her energy. And then immediately I get a name of a person in her life that is living.
Mm.
And so then I start to give her all this information. And like by the end of the call, like the girl is like so blown away and overwhelmed. And
Wow.
my mentor, Hillary, she says to me, she was like, are you working as a medium? And I was like, no. And she was like, why did you sign up for the beginner course? And I was like, because I didn't know
Crazy.
where else to start. And she was like, you actually don't need the beginner course at all.
Yeah.
She was like, you're more advanced than you realize. And she was like, and honestly, after we finish like several sessions together, you won't need any more training. You'll be ready to practice. Like that is what she saw in me the very first day. And she's been doing it for 10 years and her school has been open for like
Yeah.
almost a decade. And so I
Wow.
was like, wow. And then went through that process. And by the end of it, we had weekly readings. She'd put random people on three-way and
Mm.
I never met them, didn't know who they were, but I met them the day of over the phone, gave them a reading, and like every week we did that, and
Mm.
it got more and more complex, and I earned my certification as a professional medium that way.
That's incredible. You said a lot here, because I thought you had to be in the room with the person. You had to touch them like TV tells you and all of these
Mm-mm.
things. I didn't know you could do it over the phone. That's even more interesting and almost scary because it's literally like a superpower, man. And like your
It's
story,
energy.
more nerd shit, man. You sound like Jean Grey from X-Men,
See,
or
energy.
or Harry Potter. Was he like that? I don't know. I used to fall asleep every time my roommate in college put Harry Potter on. I always fell asleep, but
Yeah.
I never got into it. So wow, so you were kind of like basically a superstar. You just didn't know it yet. It was just all in there.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Wow, wow. So from there, how did you go about regular life at that point? Because now you have more
Yeah.
control. You can harness certain things.
Mm-hmm.
What were your regular interactions with people like at that point? Like, did it affect it?
They, yeah, they, once I like settled out, it'd be very interesting because it was like I was balancing two worlds at once. So like I
Yeah.
work in healthcare
Right.
And I was at work one day, and I worked in a procedural area at the time, and so we're doing a procedure, and the lights start flickering, and then I get this
Mm,
sense of energy. So like my senses start going off. I have like these
mm,
somatic cues, and for me, like my skin will start to feel warm, or it'll feel like tingling,
yeah.
and or like I'll get like a rush in my gut, and like I'm like, okay, it's a spirit energy close by.
Mm, mm,
And so as I look around, I see this like male in his 30s leaned up against the wall. And no one else is
right.
seeing this because I'm externally clairvoyant. So like I see spirit how I see you.
Right.
And so I'm like, okay, I was like, nobody else knows this is happening. And so he comes into the procedure room and he tells me, he was like, you need to come with me. I'm leaving today. And I'm like, in my mind, and so like and like again, like open your mind to it. Like, but
Mm,
telepathically, I'm like, what are you talking about? And
yeah.
he's like, I'm leaving today. Mind you, in the physical world, I am in a procedure. I
Yeah,
have
I'm about to
all
say
of my
you're at
coworkers
work.
around me. I'm at work. There's a patient on the
You have
table,
to pay
and
attention.
I am like balancing two different worlds. Like the
Yeah.
spiritual world is coming at me, and the
Yeah.
physical world is coming at me. So
So that
I
guy
was
was rude.
like, yeah, because like spirit gets pushy when they see a medium,
Yeah.
they get pushy.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so I was like, I can't. I have to. And I told him, I was like, I have boundaries. I'm focusing on this patient right now. And then, like, through that, he flickers the lights. I kid you not, shuts the room completely down. We had to switch to a different room. And then after
Wow.
that, I was like, okay, let me finish what I'm doing if you will chill out, and
Yeah.
I will follow you. And so he was like, okay. And so then, and it's just like when I hear it out loud, it just sounds so coconuts, but like this is my
No,
real life.
it's your real reality.
And so
It's
I was
kind
like,
of
okay.
scary. I don't know.
So the procedure, no, it really at first I
Yeah.
was like, what? Am I going crazy?
Mm,
And so the procedure finished, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna follow you. Just tell me where you want to go. And so he started leading me to the ICU. And so as I'm walking towards the ICU, there are like physical humans lined up along the hallway to the ICU, and I'm like, what is happening? This is so weird.
yeah.
And so I was like, whatever. And so like
Wait,
I
are they
get to
really
the
there? These are like,
yeah, these are like physical humans, like
okay. Okay.
real body humans. And so
Gotcha.
I get to the patient's room, and his nurse is there, and I'm like, hey, what's going on? And by this time, the male spirit that found me was in his room, like standing beside his physical body that was in a
That's
coma.
incredible.
And
Wow.
so I asked his nurse, and I was like, what's going on? And mind
No.
you, when he came to me, he was like, come on, I'm leaving today. And I was like, I don't know what you're
No.
talking about. And
No.
so I asked his nurse in the real world, I was like, what's going on? And she was like, he's leaving today. He's having his organs donated.
That's amazing.
And I was like, okay. And she was like, did you know him? And in my mind, I'm like, he came to me and told me he was
Yeah.
leaving today.
Yeah.
But in like my like physical, like material world, I'm like, no, just checking in, X, Y, and
Yeah.
Z. Like I made something up, but
Yeah.
during the workday, one of the reasons why I am transitioning out of healthcare and stepping into being a medium full time, because like every day at work, working in a hospital, like you
Yeah.
can imagine how bombarded I get.
Yeah.
And so
I
it's
can't
like
imagine.
if I'm working a 12-hour shift, there are
Hmm.
days where if I'm too open, I've worked 24 and 12.
That's got to be draining. And go back to your story. It's weird too. Not weird. It's funny because I'd be like, who the fuck is this guy just walking in here? This random ass
Yeah.
man. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That clearly works here. Like, so what is he doing? You know? But yeah, I
Yeah.
can't imagine how crazy that is to have to balance all of that at work and how
Hmm.
tiring this is because I'm going to assume that you have a gas tank and you can only do but so much before you're completely wiped
Yeah.
out, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like nobody knows it's happening. And that's one of the biggest things.
So does this affect your mood? Like if you're again, no offense, ladies. So, but if this is like a lady, right, a woman, right, because
Hmm.
biologically you can't do this, and if I'm dating my girl or a woman and she has these abilities
Hmm.
and she's just completely coming in the house on some left shit, I may make the mistake of saying, "What are you on your period or something like that?" Like, or do you get like
Mm.
that kind of drained, kind of random? Like when you talk to somebody and you're drained, do you get
Yeah.
moody? Do you get like randomly kind of snappy at people, or do you get a little more recluse and you withdraw? Like, how does that work when you are
Yeah.
overwhelmed and you have a partner, or you're with your family, or you're at work? Like, how do you what does that look like for you?
Hmm. Great question. So, everything like ties back to itself. And so it goes back to being developed and underdeveloped. When I was underdeveloped, I would experience a lot of those like frustrations or emotional lability. Like, for example, I was sitting before I understood what was going on, I was sitting
Mm,
next to a girl and she was telling me a story about her brother that had passed away. So I'm listening. And
mm.
then halfway through the story, I felt this feeling like I was about to burst into tears. Mind
Oh
you,
no.
I knew this girl for like 2 weeks. So
Yeah.
like what? And so when it came up in my body and I was like, I feel like I'm about to cry. And it got to the
Mm.
point my eyes were watering and I had to tell her, I was like, hey, I was like, I got to take a minute and step away from the conversation because I feel like I'm about to cry and I don't understand why. And then she
Wow.
turns to look me in my eyes and her eyes are wet. And she says to me, those are my tears. I've been trying not to cry this whole time. And
That's
I told
great.
her, I was like, well, you need to cry because I got to get it
Yeah.
out of my body. And so when you don't have a way to develop or protect yourself energetically, you just assume everybody's bullshit. So like if someone's having a really crappy day at work and I'm not like practicing energetic hygiene and taking care of myself, I'm gonna start to assume that energy. And now I'm frustrated. Now I'm rattled. Logically, I was having a great day.
Yeah.
Emotionally, I'm ready to fight.
Wow. This sounds
Yeah,
this sounds hard. I'm not gonna lie to you. Like this sounds like a
it is
very
hard.
difficult life to kind of navigate. And you still have to live in this world that
Hmm.
you physically live in. So you still have
Right.
certain parameters that you have to kind of function within to be normal, and not look
Hmm.
like you said, you might be ready to fight. And I highly doubt you can go and punch the patient's parent, that's getting on your nerves, you know. So have you ever been in a situation at work? And then for me, I want to get into like the actual procedure, not too much because I'm terrified, but like just give me the give me the outline. Have you ever walked into a room and no, this kid is going to die, or his patient? I work with children, but I know you work other places. Have you ever walked into a room? Let's use you can use this. The family members are there. They're
Hmm.
hoping that this patient's going to make it. Have you ever walked into a room and knew this isn't going to happen for this patient? This patient's going to pass, and wanted to tell the family members, or is it something that you just kind of gotta keep quiet until
Hmm.
we actually call it, or the doctor calls it?
Yeah. I will say I fortunately I have more of the opposite. Like when you work in healthcare, they always tell you, you get this sense if patients are going to pass or not, right?
Yeah.
And so like I've gotten that sense, but it's never come to me in terms of like in a clairaudient way where I was told this, or it never came to
Okay.
me in a psychic or a mediumistic way. What does happen though
Mm-hmm.
is I usually find patients who are needing hope and encouragement and like love and reassurance. And so what does happen is, for example, I walked into this patient's room. I was working with adults at the time. I walked into her
Ew.
room. I know, right? They're the worst. Just kidding,
They
adults.
are. They
Um,
stink.
and I walked into her room and I didn't even know this woman. And immediately I walk in and I was like, ooh, I was like, I'm getting a lot of masculine energy because like the energy shifts and like the pressure on my skin. I was like, this feels very masculine. And
Mm.
then I looked at her and at the head of her bed was standing like this 6 foot tall black male figure, gray hair,
Mm.
beautiful teeth, slender build.
Still got his
And
teeth
I
together.
was like, I think this is her grandpa. And
Mm.
so like then he starts like communicating with me, telling me to take care of my baby girl, take care of my baby girl. And mind you, like from a healthcare perspective, I'm picking her up for a procedure. So like I'm going through my medical spiel. He's in
Yeah.
my left ear, she's in my right ear. I'm trying to
Yeah.
keep all of the lines straight. And then eventually I was like, and granted, thank God I live in California.
Mm.
And I was like, I'm feeling a lot of masculine and male energy around you. And
Mm.
then she was like, oh, really? And I'm like, yeah. And I was like, did your grandfather cross? And then she
Mm.
was like, yeah. She was like, I have been thinking about him all night. And I
That's
was like,
insane,
well,
man. Wow.
well, know that he's here with you now. And I was like, he's watching over you. He's telling me to take care of you and that you are going to be fine. And
Yeah.
she was like, oh, okay. And then like people need evidence. Like
Yeah.
there's a group of mediums called evidential mediums. And so I told her and I was like, okay, I was like, your grandpa, I was like, he's about 6 foot tall, gray hair, slender build, like nice teeth. And she was like,
Sure.
that is exactly him. And I'm like, well, he's here with you now. I was like, so you know that this is real.
Yeah.
And like she starts crying and then like I feel the energy in my body. And the nurse that I was like transporting with, like she started crying too. So like I get
That's
more of
awesome.
that. And
Yeah.
For me, that is the point of working as a medium. Like it all goes back to like the clarity, the closure, the healing.
Sure. Sure.
Like it is through love. Like that is, and it sounds like very, it sounds very like cliche, but like love is seriously the strongest vibration that we all have. From day one, we talk about God's love and we
Right.
talk
Right.
about the love
True.
for each other. And
True.
it's through that you're able to really achieve such a developed sense of being a medium. So like
Yeah.
when people find me, I always say thank you for finding me, because this tells me like you're needing hope or direction or reassurance. And I have the privilege to connect you to someone from the other side who can offer you
Yeah.
that. So I get more of that.
Wow. It's so amazing because, again, like for me, as I mentioned many times, it's something that I've willfully closed myself off to. But there have been times,
Mm-hmm.
and again, I don't think I'm necessarily special, but there have been three scenarios, man, where I'll just give you two. I was in South Carolina in Charleston one time with my girl and my ex-girlfriend and my boy. And we just
Mm-hmm.
driving around and I'm in a good mood. I'm in Charleston. We about to get drunk, party, yada, yada, yada. And we drive by this one part and bro, I immediately get anxious. I'm sweating and I want to get
Mm-hmm.
the fuck out of here. Like I want to get the
Mm-hmm.
fuck out of here. And it was like that level of like, I gotta go. And my girl
Mm-hmm.
sitting next to me and she's like, yo, what's wrong with you? And I'm like, I don't know. And I'm claustrophobic. So there's times where if I'm like in the back seat of a small car, I'll look anxious or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
This was something different. And as we're driving around there, I think I actually told you this story. But my boy is like, just, talking about the town. This is where they dropped off the slaves. And right here was the
Mm-hmm.
marketplace. And I felt all of that shit. And I was like, that makes sense. I don't want to be here, and
Mm-hmm.
because who the hell knows? My grandfather might have been here, or my great great, whatever the number would be. And what they call it, generational kind of like trauma, or whatever they call it.
Yeah.
And I felt that, bro. And that's why I know there is something extra. I'm like I said, I'm willfully closed off to it. I'm cool. God forbid I had your ability, bro. I would have jumped into fucking water. Like that would have been it for me. Or I had
Yeah.
another time I was at a pancake house up in the Boston area with my one of my best friends, and I'm just eating the pancakes. I'm like, yo, Mike, something don't feel right here. This feels weird, and just happened to be we was in Salem. And he was like, "Oh, this is where they had all the witch trials." And I'm like, "I don't want to
Mm-hmm.
fucking be here, bro." Like, and it's
Mm-hmm.
like there is that kind of, it's there, man. I've never been a person to say it's not, doesn't exist. I'm not gonna call you crazy. I'm sure some people will be like, "Yo, you're full of shit." I'm sure that's happened.
Oh, for sure. For sure.
Right, right. And for me, that is, this is I think why I'm more pro not knowing shit because I know it's there. And like I said, I'm totally fine living in this matrix. Um, I don't know, man. It's just thinking about that. Just even like when my mother passed in 2008, and she used to sit at this table and she would smoke her weed there. That's what she would sit. My mom's an RN too. My mom would sit there, smoke
Mm-hmm.
her bud, right? She can't get in trouble for it now, right? She would sit there, smoke her bud, right? And
Yeah.
she was terrified of cats. My mom's terrified of cats. And when I got Mr. Rodriguez, who was my cat, he would go over to where she used to sit and just look up. And I couldn't
Mm-hmm.
distract him. I couldn't do nothing. And it freaked me out because I'm like, well, if my mother's there and she can see me, she's seen a lot of shit in this apartment. You know what I'm saying? This couch is filthy. You
Mm-hmm.
know what I mean? So I don't know. Those things, it's intimidating and scary, but it's kind of, it's fascinating to me, bro. But it's scary. You hear how
Mm-hmm.
my voice kind of pitched up? It's,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No,
it's a lot, you know?
I felt it.
Yeah. 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 It's a lot. Yeah.
Yeah. No, like that. So, like, that is exactly what, when I say getting a sense of what your personal energy is like you gave the perfect example. You
Mhm.
were riding in the car, you were completely fine, having a good day, you were excited. So, like, in that moment, you had established a frequency that you were working with that day. And
Mhm.
then once you got close to that marketplace, it is when your energy changed. And that is when you knew that something was creating an impression upon you and changing like
Yeah.
your personal frequency at that time. And so that is such a beautiful example of why it's so important to practice energetic
Mhm.
hygiene, why it's so important to understand what's mine and what's not. Because when those moments happen, especially as a medium, I know, okay, cool, like this isn't me. For example, like some spirits will come through and like the first introduction they'll make is like whatever their emotions are.
Mhm.
And so I was having a conversation just like this with a friend over Google Meet. And then immediately I felt anxiety. I
Mm.
felt guilt. I started to feel pressure in my body. And at that point, I knew how to work with my gifts. And so I asked her and I was like, hey, I was like, do you mind if I take a second? I was like, there's some energy pushing in. And I was like, and I want to see what this is. And so she was like, yeah, no problem. And so I sat with it and I took a second and I'm very clairaudient, which means I have clear hearing. And so
Bro, you got
immediately
all the
I
powers, man.
yeah. And so like I get the name Ronald. And
Mm.
so I was like, huh, that's weird. And so I
Mm.
asked her and I was like, who's Ronald? And
Mm.
she immediately burst into tears. And it was her grandfather who had taken his own life that
Oh
year
no.
prior.
Oh
And
man.
so when he came through, I felt all of those feelings that he had in his body before he took
Yeah.
his own life. And I knew they weren't mine because I had already established a
Uh,
frequency.
right.
And when the information came through, I was able to tell her. But some people aren't clairaudient. So sometimes all people get, like you, are
Mm.
the emotions first because they're the easiest thing that we acquaint ourselves with every
Yeah.
day.
Yeah.
You can
Right.
talk
Right.
yourself out of a thought, but you can't talk yourself out of a feeling, right?
Yeah. I wish you could, man. Trust me. I've
That'd be
had some
so
painful
nice.
moments. You know. Yeah.
Yeah. And so
Wow.
it's exactly like that. And so I knew I was like, okay, these emotions aren't mine. And I'm grateful I know what to do with them. But when you have moments where you're open and you have emotions that aren't yours and you don't know what to do with them, you become overwhelmed. Then you
Yeah.
remove yourself from your body. You start to intellectualize. You shut down your sensitivities and your
Sure.
ability to feel, to connect. And then that's it.
Right. So how do you toe the line between being medium and a therapist? Because I'm sure you have to have some of the therapeutic parts of this. If you want to, also you
Yeah.
can tell me what a session with you was like. Like, because I know people that get, like I said, are going to want to contact you. What is a session like
Yeah.
with Mr. Jamal Lewis? And you better get it now because this man's about to be famous. He gonna be with Kevin Hart and them
Yo.
soon. So get your shit together.
Yo, seriously. So I offer three different readings. I offer a crossover loved ones reading, where just like it states, I connect you to a loved one from the other side, and it could be anyone that is crossed over. I have no control in that. I just give you what I get. The second reading I offer is a personal spirit guide reading, which is one of my favorites. It makes me light up. And personal
What is
spirit
that?
guides are what people often refer to as like guardian angels.
Okay.
And during this reading, it's usually someone who comes to me and they're like, I am at a crossroads in my life. I don't know what to do. I don't know where to go. I don't know how to leave this relationship, or I just left one and I don't know how
Hmm.
I'm supposed to do. I just quit my job. Maybe I need to quit my job. I maybe need decision helping if I need to move or not because like X, Y, and Z. And so with that, I tap into like their spirit network and their personal spirit guides come through and they offer insight and information how to move along with their life. And then the third reading I offer, which I also love, is intuitive coaching. And
Hmm.
this reading
Hmm.
is reserved for people who want to practice energetic hygiene. So it's for anybody. So, like, if you think you might be psychic, intuitive coaching reading. Think you might be a medium, intuitive
Right.
coaching reading. If
Right.
you just want to figure out how to navigate your energy, make it work for you, and create a life where you become so good at manifesting high quality experiences, that is for you. So it is literally for anyone. And I see a lot of different people through intuitive coaching. Some people want to develop, and some people want to say, okay, like, I want to start living a life where good things happen to me, where I feel better, where I have higher quality
Yeah.
experiences,
Yeah. Yeah.
where I start to get the things that I deserve. And so during that reading, I psychically read your energy and then I identify where you have energetic blocks. And we
Wow.
talk about that. And I
Wow.
tell you what I'm sensing. Like, for example, I worked with a girl, and immediately when I came on, I could see that her throat chakra was blocked. And then on her right side, I could see that she had masculine energy that was connected to her solar plexus over here. And so I'm like, okay, immediately
Wow.
tapping into your energy, I see your throat chakra is blocked, which tells me you have difficulty speaking your truth. You have difficulties like telling people how you feel, and you suppress your voice. You suppress your sense of self. And I was like, and I also sense and see that there is masculine energy that has caused more of that suppression of your sense of self, and it's tied to your solar plexus, which tells me that you are unable to advocate for yourself, and it diminishes your confidence because your solar plexus is that place of I can. It's how you can go out into the world. It's your capability. And so seeing that there was masculine energy attached to that lets me know that there
Mm-hmm.
was a man in her life that
Yeah.
took away her power and that she had a history of that. And so that was in the first 10 seconds of sitting with her. And and so that set the foundation. And then the rest of that was just all from coaching intuitively.
Yeah.
And then we worked through it. And like that is how people grow and develop and learn to balance their energy.
So you can find a lot of help here. Like it, listening to that, it almost sounds like
Mm-hmm.
you can maybe even help somebody with a phobia, or little things
Seriously.
like
Yeah.
that. Yeah, yeah, that's awesome, man. And I want people to contact you. I'll put all your contact information down
Yeah. I love
because
that.
you clearly love what you do. Even though it
I
seems like it
do.
took you path to get here, and you may still be,
Yeah.
you may become Super Saiyan at some point, and really just, you
Mm-hmm.
may not be done developing yourself, right?
I hope
Um,
so.
that's
I hope
awesome,
not.
man.
I mean,
So,
yeah.
so here's a question that I do have for you.
Yeah.
Have you ever done a reading? You don't got to get into specifics on this one because I'm terrified. Have you ever done a reading that has left you scared for somebody else?
Hmm. I can't say no. I've never done a reading that has left me afraid for somebody else. I have had readings where a lot of heavy things came through
Yeah,
that I found myself sending them love and sending them light and healing afterwards because a lot
awesome.
came up. Like,
Yeah,
just to be brief, there was a woman who came to me, her friend had crossed over, and she didn't know if he was murdered or if he died from natural causes because there was a lot involved. And so
yeah,
going through this reading and getting the evidence and information from the other side to him, a lot came up because like there was a lot of healing because she got information that he was not like
yeah,
murdered,
right.
but it was also like that healing that happens after you get the information, and those are big feelings, right?
That's a fact.
um and so I found myself praying for her and sending her love and light after the fact, is like I can only do so much. Like my job as a medium is to start you off in the right direction, but it is up to you to be empowered and equipped with the tools
Sure.
to finish yourself off.
I see a lot of parallel with like therapy and traditional mental
Hmm.
therapy and everything like. Because again, I'm
Yeah,
giving you the tools, but you got to apply them.
you gotta apply
Um,
them.
wow. So, what does TV get wrong?
Oh, dang, that's such a good question.
What does TV get wrong? And
Yo,
I'm gonna give you. I'm gonna actually play a clip, two clips, and
yeah.
I want you to react to them. Hopefully, remember I asked you yesterday about the screen sharing
Hmm.
thing. Practice
Hmm.
with wifey yesterday. I don't know if I got it right or not, but we're gonna try.
Yeah.
But first, what before I even do that, what does TV get wrong, and what does TV get right?
Yeah. Ooh, okay. So I feel like I think as a medium and watching it, TV gets it wrong in the sense it kind of paints us all as like making things up, or
Yeah.
you'll hear where it says we call it cold or hot readings.
Okay.
And so, like with a cold or hot reading, like you're accused of like reading somebody's body language
Right.
or picking up on like their mannerisms and going off of that, or just generalizing them. Like maybe like most people have a grandparent that has passed, and so like easy to be like, oh, I'm sensing that one of your grandparents has
Yeah.
passed, and
Yeah.
then like if someone's like really needing that reading, they're
Yes.
going to give into that. They'd be like, yeah, oh, my grandmother is passed. And I'm like, okay, because I have your grandmother here with me and she's showing me an image of you as a little girl. Everybody was a child at one point.
Right. Right.
And you know what I mean? And so they're like, and she wants me to tell you that she loves you and that she supports you. And
Yeah.
it seems like you're going through a hard time right now. Yeah, they're going through a hard time. They've paid the money to find someone to talk to people who have crossed over. So, yes, their life
Right.
is very hard right now.
Right. Right. Right.
So, all of those things can be, it is just, it's sad.
It's like
It's
a con
really
artist.
sad. Yeah,
You're
when you manipulate people.
Yeah, and you're using somebody's pain. It's sort of like why, not exactly the same, not the same at all, actually, but people that traffic in people's pain is kind of fucked up.
Hmm.
Like I
Yeah.
find excuse me, a lot of pastors are like that.
Hmm.
A lot of these relationship coaches, manosphere, and all of this stuff as well. Well, I personally have tapped in on certain parts of it. I never got involved because I don't want to traffic in, because I was that person too. I had a situation where I hated women at one point, not like as humans,
Mm,
but relationship wise. And when I found certain things that catered to what I wanted to hear, oh yeah, I feel that way too. Like you said,
right,
oh, I feel that
right,
way too. Oh, I feel that way too. And then it
right.
just put me in more of a rage, until I had to figure out not all women are crazy. 84% are, but there's a 16% that are not bad. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying? Yeah, so yeah, that's true. I do see that on TV a lot, actually. It's actually a clip I should have brought
yeah.
up. A movie came to my mind. So I'm gonna play one clip. Let's see if we get
Okay,
this right. So I want you to look at this scene here
okay,
and tell me what they get right and tell me what they get wrong. If
okay.
I can get it to play. God damn it. All right. Tell me what you get right and tell me what you get wrong.
Oh, I've got a plan. You see, I figured this thing out. There's something we can do. All we got to do, we can. What to me? Oh, to me.
Morticia?
Orlando, is that you?
Morticia, where you at? I can't hardly see.
Here, she's here.
In front of you, I'm right here.
Damn, baby, what you do to your hair?
Orlando, you like it? It's all. Get out of me, you son of a bitch!
Any truth to that? Like, how ridiculous is that? Or how,
Wow.
like, what did you draw from that? That's from the movie Ghost, so I don't want nobody coming after me who owns that
Yeah.
property. Ross Boy ENT has $17 in the bank, so if you want to sue me, it's yours. You can have it.
Yo, believe it or not, that is 100% accurate.
Really? I thought that was more for comedic value. Get out of here.
Mm-mm. So what that is called as a medium, it's called blending.
Mm.
And so if you're curious, you can go on Google and type in blending mediumship. And what blending is, it's twofold. Like that, what you saw is called trance mediumship, is what you watched it be demonstrated. And then
Hmm.
the experience of that is called blending. So what blending is like whenever you connect with a spirit that is crossed over from the other side, they blend their energy with you, which is how, if you listen to any of my readings, you'll hear I get a sense of their personality, I get a sense of their emotions, I get a sense of how they
Wow.
cross. And so the more developed you are, the higher you're able to blend with spirit, and their experience superimposes onto yours. And
Wow.
with trance mediumship, when you blend to like 97%, right? If you want to quantify it, it becomes trance mediumship where that spirit that you're connecting with has the ability to come to the forefront and you become like you recede and they're able to speak through you in first person. There
Wow.
is evidence that shows they're able to like do certain like physical functions. They're able to see and feel and hear and talk to you. So like through developed trance mediumship,
No.
spirit is able to embody the medium and like speak through them as if they're there, just like you saw in that video. So that
Wow.
encompassed blending accurately and it encompassed trance mediumship.
So you kind of become like an avatar, like the movie
Yeah, you
Avatar. Like,
do.
wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Man, this
Yeah.
is some serious, scary shit.
The energy, like it when you first start like practicing and working with blending as a medium, it
Yeah.
kind of it's a lot. Like whenever we call it like chills, like it's like ooh, you're like ooh, I've got the chills.
Yeah.
Everybody's
No.
experienced that.
No.
It feels like that when the energy steps into your space. And so
Wow.
sometimes, like during a reading, when I'm connecting with someone who has crossed over and they get like this, like I see it in a room and they get this close to me.
Hmm.
And when they trust me enough to blend, it will just like be superimposed into my body. And so, like, I will get that ooh, feeling like, ooh, because like now,
Wow.
like their entire experience is superimposed onto mine. So, yeah, that was very
That's
accurate.
fascinating. Wow. Okay. So I thought there would be
Hmm.
some comedy added to that. All right. Well, I got another one. This one's a little bit
Yeah.
longer, but
Yeah.
let's
Let's
see.
do it.
And this one is, this is definitely, it's from Martin, so it's comedic, but it's from my favorite show, Martin. Like I said,
Hmm.
and this is a little bit longer. It's almost 2 minutes, but
Hey, kids, come get y'all candy. Kids.
Who was it?
Nobody.
What you mean, nobody?
It's cool. It's just a win. Martin Wynn does not knock on the door.
Maybe it was old man Ackerman coming back from the grave.
Yeah, and you probably just let him in.
Stop it, all right?
Hey, you guys, let's try and reach him.
Who?
Old man Ackerman, come on, we're gonna have a seance.
Oh, no, we're not.
Oh, yes, we are. Okay, now everybody repeat after me, okay? Conda strata mantos.
Conda strata.
Nosperatus.
What is she speaking, man? Mexican?
Code. They're occult words.
Look, we shouldn't be messing with this occult.
Oh, Tommy, this way. Keep your hand on the board.
Wait a minute. I feel something. You're trying to get through. We welcome you. Come back. Conda mantosa conda nosperatus.
Wait, look, you're spelling something out. Look.
Who are you? Speak to us. Tell us your name.
Whoa, y'all feel that? Just got real cold in here.
A-C...
E-R-M-A-N. Ackerman. Ackerman! It's old man Ackerman!
I made contact, y'all. I made contact.
Yo.
What do you get from that ridiculous? Oh, it's a funny scene, man.
Ridiculousness. So that is what people often think about when they think of connecting with spirits. They think of like Ouija boards, seance, speaking
Yeah.
in some foreign language. And
Yeah.
like, honestly, like, you don't like, I personally don't even believe in ghosts, if that tells you anything. And I feel like
Interesting.
that's the whole thing of like contacting ghosts and stuff, because like,
Yeah.
what are you connecting to? What is your
Mhm.
purpose and intention for all of this? And like,
Mhm.
how does it? Yeah, that is what is
That was off.
perpetuated. Yeah, yeah. And so people see that and they're like, oh, demonic, ghost, seance,
Right.
witchcraft,
Right.
voodoo, da 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 da. And I'm like, it is the complete opposite. Like what you saw in Ghost is like what
Mhm.
it's like.
So on a scale of 1 to 10, realistically, what would you give that clip for Martin?
Oh, I would give it I'd give it a 3 for accuracy and a 10 for comedic intent.
Oh, see, I would give it a 10 on that too. And Ghost, you would give a 10 out of 10 in
Yeah,
terms of realism?
Ghost is like really accurate. Like yeah, like how her and Patrick Swayze work together. So like if you watch that movie, you will see that like
Mhm.
Whoopi Goldberg is very clear audience. So she hears Sam talking to
Mhm.
her, but no one else can hear him. And then she's also externally clairvoyant because she sees Sam as if he has physical presence in the room and nobody else can see him. And so like those are two of my gifts. I demonstrate mediumship and experience it that same way. So like when I watch that movie, I actually get a sense of comfort and I feel seen.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you, was that like a movie that you, oh, this is my story here. This identifies.
I
Because for me,
I
it's odd.
did.
Like I identified with Will Smith, actually, oddly enough. Like skinny dude, grew up in a certain neighborhood, wasn't in the street, then grew up, started
Mm,
rapping, wanted to be an actor, got a little more buff, started getting more girls, got a little more confident. Obviously that's his real life, just not a, well, I guess kind of Fresh Princey.
mhm.
But I identify with that a little bit more. But his career actually went somewhere. But like it's funny how you can find like, connection through art and stuff like that. So that's kind of cool
Yeah,
that connected to you. All right, well, there you have it,
yeah.
man. Martin was full of shit.
No. But I will say, like, back in like the old days, like 1700s and 1800s, like mediumship, it had the like they practice this like
Yeah,
seance and stuff,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
And so
yeah,
like the setup would be like the candles and like the intimate setting, but it's just been so distorted and like
right,
demonized, and like now
yeah,
it's not. I mean, everything grows, and like now mediumship is not like that. So like if you come do a reading for me, I'm not going to sage you. I'm not going to light 15 candles and speak in like a random
yeah,
language. I'm not going to
yeah,
bring out a Ouija board. I'm not going to have tarot cards. You're going to sit in front of me. I'm
right,
going to read and sense your energy, and we're going to have a
yeah.
conversation. It's like sitting on the couch.
You're not gonna have on like a special robe with glitter and shit
No,
like that.
nothing at all. We're just gonna be
And so,
sitting down just like
yeah,
this. And so like I do all my readings virtually.
okay,
And so during a reading, it starts exactly like this. You come on, I come on, and like even now, like as I see you, like I get a sense of what your aura is like. And like that's just free information. And so like
yeah,
for you, as I am sitting with you, your aura is a mix of like white and blue. And so like the white tells me like there is this connection to divinity or like spirit for you. And then the blue tells me that there is this intellectual and confident piece to you as well. And so I automatically get a sense of what your aura is like. And that changes all of the time. But it's like
right.
first information that you get, you know?
So you're already downloading information on certain. So that must help when you're dating, or does it not
Oh,
help? You still running the fuck ups.
oh, yeah. Oh, you still run into them, but you can clock it a lot sooner. And so
Yeah.
like you can see like I went on a date and halfway through the date, like his aura completely changed to pink and I was like, oh, you feeling me? And like
Oh, word.
yeah, I can
That
see
helps.
it.
Yeah,
And that was like really, really nice to see. Yeah.
I see it because it made you blush. So I see that. I read your aura right there. I saw you blush when you said that story.
Ooh, thank you.
All right. A little bit of technical difficulties there as we were bigging up the Riverside website app, but it's still a dope app. Listen, man, things happen. But back to this. So you said you saw the pink vibrations,
Yeah.
and then that meant that homie was feeling you, and
Yeah.
that's a nice boost of confidence, that's for sure.
Yeah, for sure. It is really nice. But I try not to use, I guess, my abilities like often in that setting because like it's still important to yeah.
There you go.
Uh
Sorry.
I see it. It's still important to like use like your own sense of self to like
Yeah.
navigate the world, right? It's kind of like how you've heard like in any superhero movie they say like use your powers for good and like they try and like live their life as a regular person, only like do it when they need to because like it
Right.
takes energy for sure. But yeah, it is a nice little tool, especially like when you can't suss something out. You're like, something's up.
Yeah, it could help. I mean, I don't know. I don't know. Maybe it's arrogance, but I feel like I'm in a good standing regardless of who I go to. But I don't know. I think
Yeah.
that's just male ego shit, man. Because definitely do not have 100% success rate. That's for sure. So, so when you see the red flags, you really see the red flags, and if you choose to ignore it, then it's really your fault. Then, so to speak, I don't want to totally blame
Really
it on
my
you, but
fault.
yeah, have you done
Yeah.
that?
No, so like what I will do is like say I'm like sensing something that's off or something that's making me feel uncomfortable
Hmm.
and I'm like I can't discern if it's like just like the emotional flurries you feel while dating and those insecurities that are activated or if I'm
Yeah.
getting like information that makes me feel some kind of way. And so what I'll do if I start feeling the way before I go to bed at night, I will talk to God and I always say the same thing and I say, God, please reveal what his truth is.
Wow.
And after that, over the next several days, it'll swing one way or the other, and then I'll know. But whenever I don't know how to interpret information, I always say, God, please reveal what his truth is.
Yo, the
And that
connection
is
between the two is
surefire.
amazing. It's
Yeah.
amazing because, again, growing up how I grew up and everything like that, my mother, I told you this before, my mother always said, don't get involved with it. There's another reason why I'm like, I don't want to know nothing about me. I don't want nothing to do with
Hmm.
any of it, right? Because just my own, sorry, Blaze, just my own like training kind of, right? But
Hmm.
when you say you talk to God, the way she would present this, what you do to me is
Hmm.
almost like, it's almost like wrong in terms of God and
Mm.
everything like this. So when that's why I asked you at the beginning of this, do you consider yourself a religious man? But you gave your answer spiritual wise. I don't know. I would just rate that was kind of like opposing directions,
Yeah.
and interesting that you pray. It's almost like this comedian made a joke. No, this porn star made a joke, and he was like, it's the weirdest thing. If I'm on set and I can't get hard, I'm like, God, please give me hard. And it's like, bro, that's the wrong thing to face.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Look, you just reach out. And for me, that's the biggest part of it. Like for me, I feel like it is difficult to be a medium and not be connected to something that is higher than yourself because it genuinely all comes from that space. And
Interesting.
so my relationship with God was already there and working as a medium, I feel like I have gotten even closer to God, like my trust and my discernment
Mm.
and like God's presence. I feel like I have come to know more intimately to the point where I can discern like God's voice from my voice.
That's awesome.
And, you know, because it takes a lot of like you just really have to be connected and guided to something higher than yourself to be able to say, oh, I connect to something higher than me to give you like information. Like
Yeah.
God has to be, for me, God has been such an integral part of that. And I wouldn't be able to use my gifts and abilities the way I have been able to and help people if I didn't have God's hand on my back guiding.
That's beautifully said, man. Again, if I can do the chair here, I would give you the chair. Maybe I'll put it in the post edit. I can do that. You know what
Yeah.
I'm saying? But yeah, so okay. So I guess the way so when you are with a client, how does this go to the people who may not know or whoever
Mhm.
is out there listening? How does the process go?
Yeah, great question. So, like I said, most of my readings are done virtually unless I can accommodate physical reading, and it makes it great because people can do it all over the world whenever. And so when it happens, we hop on the call, and then I tell you I have an introduction that I give everybody. And so my introduction is as a psychic medium, I work psychically, which allows me to sense and feel energy that is around you and in your auric field. And then the medium part allows me to connect to your higher spirit network, including those who have crossed over and your personal spirit guides. During the reading, I just ask that you answer yes, no, or maybe. It's my job to work out the information presented to you. So, like, don't feed the medium, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And throughout the reading, you know, I can't control what comes through or what messages they have for you, but I can guarantee that it's all out of love. And so once I establish that, then I take about 30 seconds to center myself. And so that looks like just me grounding. I'll close my eyes and I'll just get quiet for up to 30 seconds and feel what impressions I'm getting. And then after those 30 seconds, usually around like, for me, I've timed it. And usually around like the 10-second mark or so, I start to get
Mm-hmm.
impressions or pushing from the other side. And then the reading starts. And it's a casual conversation just like this. I'm sitting like this, I look like this, you're sitting like this, you look like that. And then we have the reading for 50 minutes and that's it.
50 or
And
15?
50.
Okay. All right.
And
Nice.
like during the reading, how I work is I see you could call it like the spirit world in a way. Like I get the impressions, it's like a reading room.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I call it. And so it's like this really big room. And then I see impressions of people, almost like if you were to stare at a light bulb and how you close your eyes, you can still see like the glowing outline of it.
Sure.
That's how I see spirit energy. But I
Okay.
see them as like human shapes, forms, height, size, stature, like
Right.
body habits. I see it that way. And so when I step into that space, the impressions or people that are closest to me is usually psychic information. And so it's like, it's very easy information to get because it's just like right here for me. And if it's a crossover loved one reading, I target my energy towards the back of the room because in the back of the room is where crossover loved ones sit and where your personal spirit guides sit. So, for example, I did a reading for a girl 2 weeks ago, and she
Mm-hmm.
wanted a personal spirit guide reading. And so, immediately when I connected, like right close to me, was psychic energy about what she was going through in her life and like what she was needing. But then, as the reading kept going on, I kept getting male energy from the back of the room. And
Mm-hmm. It's always different.
I was like, I told her and I was like, hey, I was like, so I'm getting a lot of male energy for you from the back of the room, which tells me this is someone who has crossed over. I was like, do you mind if we connect with this male? And she was like, no, like, I think that's great. I was like, okay. And so I invited the male closer and he came closer. And I was like, this male figure is someone who is around your age in his 30s that is trying to connect you. Like, this doesn't make sense. And she was like, well, yeah. She was like, I kind of wanted to connect with a guy from high school that I was friends with that crossed suddenly and I didn't get a chance to be with him. And I was like, okay, so he's coming through now to talk to you, but he was lingering in the back. And so it's like moments like that where I want to give everyone the opportunity to receive information. And so during a reading, if I say, oh, I feel a male figure like in the back of the room, or I feel X, Y, and Z pushing through, or like right here, X, Y, and Z, like it's because I see it in a really big room and I'll get images. And so like I'll say, I see the image of an umbrella. And
Yeah.
for me, that's a symbol of someone taking care of another person. or
Yeah.
being responsible for another person. And if that umbrella moves or if it's raining, that tells me that someone doesn't feel like they're being cared for or provided for. And during a reading, I will also see film strips like as
Hmm.
well. And so like they'll play out the scenario for me, and I'm like, okay, for example, I did a reading, and it's on my page as well, where he was telling me that she needed to go work in the garden because he was going to send her signs in the garden. And so he showed me this film strip of her working in the garden. And I was like, he's showing me, these images of you being in a garden. Do you have a garden? And she was like, oh, yeah, we always had a garden. I just planted some tomatoes. And I was
Wow.
like, okay, because he's showing me a film strip. So
Yeah.
sometimes you just like you never really know what you'll get. And part of developing as a medium is understanding what your symbols mean. Because the first time I saw an umbrella, I was like, why are you showing me an umbrella, spirit? What
Yeah.
does this mean?
Yeah.
And you got to learn lessons the hard way. And now I know when I see an umbrella, it means that there is something about someone being cared for, taken care of, or not taken care of that spirit wants to talk about.
Wow. That's pretty dope on a number of levels, and that's you're doing good work. I can tell you're helping. Wow. I can tell that you're really helping people get through really difficult times. I've lost many people, and
Mm.
I deal with death. Knock on wood. I don't want anybody to die as I say this, but I deal with death fairly well. But I don't know. I
Ooh,
see the what happened.
I, yes, yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
I
it's
I
happening. The
see
thing.
I I see the way that it can heal people and help people, and
Yeah.
I think you're doing great work, man. And I'm gonna funnel as many people as I can to you, bro, because I know people are interested in this, and some people are on the fence about it, and maybe you have swayed, or this has swayed people to come to you,
Hmm.
man. And yeah, I think you do. That was a cool story, man.
Yeah.
And it's weird because I'm gonna transition into something because I meant to ask you during the dating
Hmm.
part. Have you ever had a have you ever had a vision or something in the middle of doing the bad stuff mid pump, and you see like a has that ever happened to you?
Like, I actually have a story to tell you, but before I
Hmm.
do that,
Hmm.
as you were talking, I started to get an impression, and
Hmm.
like I see the reading room, and like there is a female
I don't
figure
want
for
to know.
you.
I
I
don't
know
want to know.
she's in far
I
back,
don't
but
want to know
and
none
so
of
like she starts
that.
talking to me, and I didn't.
I don't
I
want to
just
know
wanted
none
to.
of
I
it, bro.
wanted to give you the opportunity. That she's in the very
I'm
far
good.
back of the room. I have no idea who it is or
I'm
what
good.
message that she has for you, but just wanted to
I
know
don't
that
want to
impression
know.
started to come through when your heart started to open
I'm
up.
good. Well,
Okay, cool, cool, cool.
I'm good. But I saw that transition. I don't want to know none of that shit, bro.
Yeah.
But maybe it's Blaze. I don't know. But no, I feel you because I saw it. I saw it, and you saw. If you notice, I like started to look down. So I'm like, oh shit, what is he? What is he? What is he? What is he hearing? What is he seeing? I was. No, I don't want to know none of that
Yo.
shit, bro.
Yeah, because it
But
came through on my in my left ear, and I was hearing because like immediately when you started talking about death, like the
mm,
first thing I heard was that spirit in the back of the room affirming you, and it was like, yeah, he does a great job with death. But then she also told me that there is this component of death that you separate yourself from so that you don't have to
yeah,
feel the entirety of it. And in a way, you are so good at it because you are so good at compartmentalizing it. But she told me, she was like, he doesn't let himself feel death all of the way, is how she
okay,
came
yeah,
across to me.
possibly. Maybe that's why when I work where we work at and we lose people, even though I'm not emotionally attached to it, there is a sense of goddamn, and I'm able to. And
Mm.
one kid recently really kind of messed me up, but I'm able to kind of detach from that and
Mm-hmm.
go to the left, But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I saw it, and I was like, oh, fuck, what is
I was like, wait, my senses
it?
are tingling.
Yeah, I saw it too, man. I was like, oh shit, Blaze, what do you got for me, man? What? Yeah,
But
but
yeah, she's still hanging out
I
in the back of the
appreciate
room.
that.
You're welcome. You're
All right,
welcome.
have mama. I'm
And that,
assuming
and
it's
that's
mama.
and that's how it starts too. Because like I never know. I just
Mm,
see like I'll get. It's usually it's two things. It's male or female, and that is about all I'll get. And I'm like, okay, I can tell you there's male energy in the back of the room. There's
mm,
female energy in the back of the room,
mm,
and that's why I said at the beginning that ethics and
mm.
consent is huge. And
Yeah,
so it is through your consent and it is through the consent of spirit because like even though their bodies aren't here, they maintain 100% of their personality, their
that's dope.
life, their
That's dope.
memory. And so they have to be honored as well. And so that's the first thing I get. And like, if you acknowledge and consent that I can invite them closer, I will then
Mm-hmm.
invite them closer and they move forward in the room. And that's when the
Okay.
blending starts because they get closer and closer and closer to me. And that's
Um,
how we blend. But until before that blending happens, they're so far away because you have to be acknowledged in this experience. And then I have to acknowledge
okay.
spirit and spirit has to accept. So it's not this, oh, I got taken over by demons. It's like
Yeah, yeah.
there's a whole ethical and consent piece to it.
That's pretty dope. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So you saw it live here, people. You saw fear and all that stuff makes sense, but that was dope. That was dope, and I appreciate that. And, it didn't scare me. Like I'm kind of playing it up for the camera, even though I don't want to know. But you know what I'm
Yeah, yeah,
saying?
yeah.
Like,
I will tell you.
yeah, it was.
Uh,
That's pretty dope. But damn, you just said something that it made me want to ask you a question. Oh, um, again, does this remove the? Now I'm going to get a real deep question, and you don't have to answer
mhm.
this if you don't want to, obviously. Does this remove the idea of a heaven and hell thing, or is this like a complete purgatory, so to speak?
Ooh, beautiful question. Honestly, What, how we describe it, I'll just tell you how we describe it and like what we know in mediumship.
Okay.
So, in order to be able to function as a medium, you have to raise your vibration, which means like clearing out the ego, cleansing your energy, raising your vibration to get higher. And so you go up, and then spirit energy, they have to lower their vibration in order to meet us halfway. And so we meet each other. And so it's work on both sides. And
Mm,
like, if spirit wasn't able to lower their vibration enough to meet you, or if you weren't able to raise yours enough to meet them, then you don't get a really great connection.
I see.
And so, in that setting, I guess if I had to think about heaven or hell, if spirit has to lower their vibration and come down from where they are to meet
Mm,
us,
mm.
then in a sense, I feel like everybody goes to heaven.
Okay, I like that. I mean, I don't know. I don't know if everybody's nice enough, but I get it. Like, it's not for me to
Yeah,
judge. You know what I'm saying? But
yeah.
there's so many layers of things that we can go through because I have a million questions for you. Like, I still have
Mhm.
ignorant questions like, Reiki, astrology, psychics, y'all are like your own like MCU timeline.
Yeah,
You know what I'm saying?
yeah,
Like
no,
just
seriously.
so many things that I want to get into. Like even with the dating, do you eventually tell your partner that you feel these things? Like
Yo, that
how
is,
do you do
I,
that?
so I have a medium memos on dating and plus ones that I'll be
How you
releasing
do?
soon this week.
What smoke?
But it, it's very interesting. And it will, like, I went on a date and he straight up told me, like, I mean, because you got to be upfront about it because the question comes up, what do you do for work? This is my job. This is what I do
That's
for work. And I
true.
can't lie about that. And so when you ask me what I do for work, I tell you I'm a medium. And they're like, oh, what is a medium? And then I tell you what a medium does. And he straight
Mhm.
up said, I'm scared, and never spoke to me again after the date. That was
Did
done.
you see his vibration change
See,
when
I
you
didn't
did?
even have, I didn't even bother tapping into his energy because I
Yeah,
want to
yeah,
give
yeah.
people a chance to be honest.
Sure, sure. And you
But
want
yeah,
them,
like,
yeah.
you get that. Like, I've had people tell me like, oh, what you're doing is down the wrong path and it's demonic.
Mhm.
And I'm like,
Yeah, yeah. But this exactly. This is
you
like
know?
the way we were taught to be inside of the coloring, right? I mean, inside the
Hmm.
lines of the coloring book. And okay, well, I'm gonna leave you soon. Wow, that sounded terrible to say to you. I'm gonna end this. I'm gonna end this chat soon because I think we have a lot that we can run down, and we're on like an hour, and about 20
Yeah.
minutes. And I think it's a really, really. I think we tapped on certain things that you really explained very clearly and very
Mm,
in a place of like you really want to help people. And like I said
I
earlier, I
do.
think that's the key to it. And
Hmm.
if there's anything that you want to say, actually, no, I do have a question. What is wait, actually, let me write. I have it worded a certain way. What is one stereotype that you do want to debunk that you people have of what you do? Maybe you just tapped on it with the
Yeah.
demonic thing and everything like that.
Yeah, the stereotype that I want to debunk is part of my mission statement as a medium. My
Okay.
mission statement is to demystify, to normalize, and to educate. That
Mm,
is my mission. And so I want to debunk that you have to be like chosen or special or, like get radioactive chemicals splashed on you in order to be a psychic medium. Like, you
yeah.
don't have to. I want people to know that everyone has the ability to be psychic and everyone has the ability to be a medium. Some people are more sensitive to it, and that's why you hear like born mediums, but we all have the ability to do so. And take that away. I want people to understand the purpose of energetic hygiene and understanding how important it is to make sure you're in a good place energetically and learning how to assess that and sense that and feel it, because you ultimately create a higher quality life for yourself. And at the end of the day, why not participate in something that you have 100% control over? And your
Dope.
energy is something you have 100% control over. And so I want to debunk that you don't have to be special to do this line of work or to get these impressions or to balance your energy. You just have to be willing. And that's it.
You heard it from the man himself. Yo, I want to thank you for coming to the Black and Red Room. I think this is going to be one of my better received episodes out of the whatever number I have, near 70 episodes. Phil, this is going to be one of the higher
So
regarded
beautiful.
ones, man. How can we reach you? I'll write it down. I'll put it in the description. But like, how can people reach out to you?
Yeah, so you can reach me on Instagram and TikTok at Medium Jamal Lewis. You could Google me now, which is so fun. You just go to Google or your favorite search engine and type in Jamal Lewis Psychic Medium. I'm usually like in the top 3 populations, and you click browse to the website. If
Lightfoot.
you, yeah, exactly. If you see a service that you want, just book the service. And there's also a form there because sometimes people don't know exactly what they need. They're like, okay, do I need intuitive coaching? Do I need a personal spirit guide reading, like X, Y, and Z? Or do I not know what I need? And so in that case, just send me a message on the forum and I'll read it. I'll email you back. And if you just want, if you know you have a need, we can start your reading and see what comes through. Because sometimes it may be a so that tells you exactly how to navigate your life. And sometimes you just might need a personal spirit guide. So if you have any questions, feel free to DM me. I'm always open and I want to help.
You heard it. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Jamal Lewis. I'll put the cheers in later.
Beautiful.
Yeah,
I love that.
thank you. Thank you for blessing the room. And for the
Yeah.
record, people, he's not talking about this Jamal Lewis.
Yeah,
I'm
it
sure
was.
you looked it up. Not that one, people.
Yeah,
Not the one
definitely,
you're thinking about.
definitely not that one.
Not this guy. But
Yeah,
he's a
that's what I
cool
was
guy
like.
too.
Yeah, because when you first Googled Jamal Lewis, it would be like that, and I was like, okay, cool. We got to get these search engines together.
Yeah. Well, at least, I think he's a Hall of Fame running back, so that's a good person to be tied to. There's nobody named Eric Thompson. I'm whack. Anyway, thank you. Peace, everybody.
Yo, thank you.
Hold on, people, before you leave. Jamal and I forgot to answer one of the questions, and he so politely reminded me we never answered the question, so got another 3 minutes of this dope episode. Enjoy. Had to rewind a little bit because Jamal let me know that there's a part that we didn't get into, and you had a story for me. And I asked
Yeah.
you, did you ever see anything mid-pump or anything like that
Yeah.
during a hookup or kissing or whatever the case is? And what the hell happened there? I'm telling you right now, that'll completely shrivel me up.
You're like, I'm out.
Yeah.
So what has happened like in the past that I can remember is when it was like during a hookup and like looked at his face and then like you could just see like you could energetically feel his head was full. And I'm like, your head is so full, and I see you thinking, and I feel you thinking, and he was like not in his body at all. And so like that connection and that experience, it was just hollow. And
Wow.
so like feeling that it's very difficult to obviously keep hooking up because I'm like, you're not in the room.
So
Like,
you mean like he has something on his mind, like maybe.
yeah, because
Wow.
you could feel it. It almost feels like, imagine the feeling of, you know how like if you sat on your hand, right?
Yeah.
And then you quit sitting on your hands, it still feels like that. It's still, you still feel that pressure even though you're not sitting on it anymore. Yeah.
Right.
And so when I feel or sense people are thinking, I get that same sense of pressure just in my body and in my head. And so I'm
Wow.
like, you are in your head. And it almost looks like the invisible words are across his forehead as a marquee. And I'm like, you're not here. And
Wow.
I don't know where you are, but you're thinking so much and your thoughts are loud. And I don't want to be here either.
Wow. So that ruined the
Yeah.
night, essentially.
Oh, for sure. I got the fuck out of there.
Wow, man. That see again, I don't want this because there's been times where I've been with a young lady, and if she can read the panic that's in my body because I'm nervous and I don't want to
hmm
bust quick or whatever the case
hmm
is, or um, I'm thinking about another chick. That happens, like never with white people. I want to make that clear. I'm not trying to get in no trouble, but in my former
Yeah.
life, like maybe I'm thinking of the girl I was bad, bro, but maybe I'm thinking of the girl I had here 3 hours ago. I don't know.
Yeah.
Oh man, yeah, I don't want none of that, none of that,
Yeah.
none of those powers, man. Did you ever hear from them again or talk to them again?
I did not. But what I will say is like that's also like intuition. Like when you develop your intuition to that point, it'll start to tell you those things to you like, wait, you're not here. Like I
Yeah,
don't energetically feel
yeah,
your body here with me.
yeah, yeah.
Kind of like when you
I've,
look at somebody and you be like, damn, like, is anybody in there? Like you see somebody, like you spaced out, you have left the room, but
yeah,
that's an
yeah.
objective assessment that you've made. But when you develop your intuition, you can energetically make those assessments too.
Wow, man, that's an
Yeah.
interesting story, yo. See,
Yeah.
powers happen, like you said, when you don't want them to happen all the time. It just appears.
Yo, it
Damn,
just be happening.
I'm sorry to hear that, man.
No, it's great because it makes for fun stories like this.
Absolutely. That's crazy, man. All right. Well, thank you for sharing that, Mr. Lewis. And to the young man, if he just, you never know. The world is very small. He may end up
hmm
looking at this episode one day. You never know. It's like, oh shit,
Yeah.
he's talking about me. And
Yeah.
one of the
Like we
girls that
found
I'm
out.
talking about, yeah, exactly. Yo. Wow, my man. Thank you for coming. Thank you for coming on the show, bro.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you so much.
He'll be back.